There is no dangerous moment in this story. That is what makes it worth telling, and it is what makes it the hardest one to sit through. Nobody falls. Nobody is chased. There is no sound of anything going wrong, no shouting, no scramble in the dark, not one single second where a person understands they are in trouble and tries to save themselves. There is a small trailer parked in a cold mountain campground on a clear October night, and inside it is warm, and a family is asleep, and the window is cracked open 2 inches because the man who set it all up was being careful. By morning, 3 of the 4 people inside that trailer will not be alive, and not one of them will ever know that anything happened. They will not wake up. They will not struggle. They will not gasp for air. Their breathing will be slow and regular the entire time. This is the story of the one thing in the outdoors that gives you no warning of any kind, because your body has no way to detect it, and of why the 2-inch gap in that window did not save them, and in a strange way made it worse. Welcome to Sunk Cost. The names in this story are invented, but the danger is entirely real, drawn from the way carbon monoxide actually kills people in campers, tents, cabins, and garages every single year, and from the fact that almost every one of them was doing something they believed was safe enough. Their names were Adam and Lissa Corley, 36 and 34, from Bakersfield, California, with a 15-year-old daughter named Nell and Adam's younger brother Wes riding along. They had bought a used travel trailer that spring, the way a lot of families do, and this was their 4th trip in it, and the first one in real mountain country. They were not experienced campers. They were not survivalists. They were a family that had bought a trailer and was learning as they went, which describes several million people in this country every summer. The day had been beautiful and warm, and this is the specific trap of high country in autumn that catches people who are used to lowland weather. At elevation, when the sun goes down, the temperature does not ease off. It falls off a cliff. A day that was 70 degrees Fahrenheit at 4 in the afternoon can be in the 20s by midnight, and if you did not plan for that, you find out about it at bedtime. Their trailer had a propane furnace, and the propane furnace was out. They had run the bottle low over the previous 3 days without noticing, and there was nowhere to refill it after dark. What they did have was a small portable generator in the back of the truck and a little electric heater, and Adam Corley had bought both of them for exactly this kind of problem. At around 9 that evening, with his daughter sitting on the couch under 2 blankets with visibly chattering teeth, Adam brought the generator up to the trailer. He did not put it in the middle of the living space. This matters, because it is the part of the story that everyone gets wrong about people who die this way. He was not careless. He was thinking about it. He put the generator in the small vestibule area just inside the door, at the very front of the trailer, as far from the beds as he could get it. And he cracked the window above it, open about 2 inches, and he propped the door itself slightly ajar with a boot. He had a rough intuition that a running engine needs air and that fumes need somewhere to go, and he acted on that intuition, and every single thing he did made him feel like a responsible person handling a problem. The campground host was a man named Ruben Sotelo, 61, who had run that loop for 6 seasons, and he came by on his evening round while Adam was setting it up. He told him not to do it. He was not gentle about it, because after 6 seasons he had stopped being gentle about this particular thing. He told Adam that a generator never goes inside, not in the doorway, not in the vestibule, not anywhere with a roof over it, and that cracking a window does not fix it. He told him that carbon monoxide has no smell and no color, and that there is no version of this where you will notice it happening. And then he did something he did with a couple of families every season. He walked back to his truck and came back with a small battery-powered carbon monoxide detector out of his glove box, still in its packaging, and offered it to him, and said he kept a few of them because of something he saw one time. Adam Corley thanked him and did not take it, and he said the sentence that this whole video exists to examine, and it is the least arrogant sentence anyone has ever said on this channel. He said, "It's just for an hour, and I've got the window cracked." Every word of that is decent. That is the horror of it. To understand what happened in that trailer over the next several hours, you have to understand what carbon monoxide actually does, because it is unlike any other danger we have covered on this channel. Carbon monoxide is produced whenever a carbon fuel burns without enough oxygen to burn completely. Gasoline, propane, charcoal, wood, kerosene. It is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and it does not irritate your eyes or your throat or your lungs. There is nothing to smell, nothing to see, nothing to cough at. The human body has no sensory apparatus for it at all. You cannot detect it. Not if you are paying attention, not if you are experienced, not if you are the most careful person in the world. What it does inside you is elegant and terrible. Your red blood cells carry oxygen using hemoglobin, and hemoglobin has a strong chemical affinity for oxygen. It has a vastly stronger affinity for carbon monoxide, on the order of a couple of 100 times stronger. Which means that when CO is present in the air, hemoglobin grabs it preferentially and holds onto it, and it will not let it go easily. So your lungs fill normally, your blood circulates normally, your chest rises and falls exactly as it should, and the cells of your body slowly starve, because the delivery system has been occupied by something that is not oxygen. And now here is the fact that explains why people die in their sleep instead of waking up and running outside. The desperate, unbearable urge to breathe that a person feels when they hold their breath underwater is not triggered by a lack of oxygen. It is triggered by a buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood. That is the alarm system, and it is a good one, and it has saved countless lives. But in carbon monoxide poisoning, you are still exhaling carbon dioxide perfectly well. The alarm never sounds. There is no air hunger. There is no choking, no panic, no sitting bolt upright in the dark. Your body has no idea anything is wrong, right up until it stops working. The early symptoms exist, but they are the cruelest set of symptoms in medicine. Headache, nausea, weakness, dizziness, drowsiness. Read that list again in the context of a cold night in a trailer at altitude after a long day of driving and hiking, and understand that every single one of those symptoms is indistinguishable from being tired and a bit cold and maybe feeling the elevation, which means that the first symptom of carbon monoxide poisoning is very often interpreted as a reason to go to bed. The poison's first move is to convince you to lie down in the room it is filling. Now the window. Because the window is the thing that has to be understood, and it is the reason this story is not about a stupid man. Ventilation is not binary. It is a rate. A running engine produces carbon monoxide continuously, at a high rate, and a 2-inch gap in a window exchanges air at some other, far lower rate. If production exceeds exchange, the concentration in the space does not stabilize at a safe level. It climbs, steadily, hour after hour. The window did not make the trailer safe. It made the curve less steep. And here is the part that makes it worse rather than better. Carbon monoxide poisoning is cumulative. It is not only about how concentrated the gas is, it is about concentration multiplied by time. A moderate concentration over 8 hours of sleep does the same work as a severe concentration over a short period. So a partial measure, in a situation where the exposure is going to last all night, does not prevent the outcome. It just moves it later, into the middle of the night, when everybody is unconscious and nobody is going to notice a headache. There is a name for the mistake Adam Corley made, and it is not stupidity. Psychologists talk about partial measures producing an illusion of control. Doing part of a safety action delivers almost the full emotional payoff of doing all of it. The window quieted the part of his brain that had raised its hand. It relieved his worry very effectively while relieving the actual hazard hardly at all. And underneath that is the deeper thing that made him carry that generator up the steps in the first place, and it is worth naming clearly, because it drives an enormous number of these deaths. When a person is facing two risks, they act on the one they can feel. The cold was in the room. It was on his daughter's face, in her shaking hands, in the visible fog of her breath inside their own trailer. The carbon monoxide was nothing at all. It had no sound, no smell, no sensation, and no presence in his imagination. Faced with a certain, tangible, immediate discomfort and an invisible statistical abstraction, human beings choose to fix the thing they can feel. Every time. They shut the door properly around 10 because it was too cold with it propped, leaving only the cracked window. Nell went to bed on the bunk over the dinette, which is at the rear of the trailer, next to a small vent that Lissa had opened earlier in the day to air the space out and had never closed. Here's what the night looked like, and it is the quietest sequence we have ever described on this channel. Around 11, everyone was warm and comfortable and pleased with the solution. Adam mentioned to Lissa that he would run it another hour and then shut it down, and then he fell asleep before that hour was over. This is extremely common, and it is worth pausing on. The plan was never to run it all night. The plan was an hour. Almost nobody who dies this way intended to leave it running. Around midnight, Lissa woke with a headache and told her husband she thought it was the altitude and took 2 ibuprofen and lay back down. That was the warning. That was the entire warning, delivered on time and correctly, and it was assigned to elevation because they had driven up 7,000 feet that day, and a headache at altitude is the most ordinary thing in the world. Around 1, Wes got up to use the bathroom and felt dizzy and sat on the edge of the bed for a minute and thought he had gotten up too fast. And sometime after that, Adam Corley woke up and he felt bad and he felt stuffy and he was cold in the face and he got up and closed the window. That is the moment. Of everything on this channel, that may be the single hardest sentence to say. A man who was already being poisoned, whose judgment was already degraded by the poison, got up in the night, felt a draft on his face, and closed the only thing standing between his family and a faster ending. He was not being careless. He was doing what a person does at 2 in the morning when cold air is blowing on them. And it is entirely characteristic of this poisoning that its victims make small, reasonable, catastrophic adjustments in the middle of it, because confusion is one of the symptoms and nobody in that state knows they are confused. After that, nobody in the trailer moved again. 50 feet away in the next site, a couple in their 20s named Day and Priya Bhatt were also cold that night. Miserably cold. They had a cheap tent trailer with no heater at all, and they had not planned for the temperature drop either, and they dealt with it by putting on every piece of clothing they had brought, doubling up their sleeping bags, and lying pressed together, complaining about it until they fell asleep. They woke up freezing and grumpy at 6 in the morning, and they were completely fine. They did not do anything smart. They had nothing to burn. Ruben Sotelo heard the generator running at around 2 and thought about walking over. He decided not to have that argument at 2 in the morning. He has said that he thinks about that decision, and it should be said plainly that the outcome was not his fault, and that he had already done more than most people would. By morning, the generator had run out of fuel and stopped on its own, and this is a strange and important detail. Once it stopped producing, the carbon monoxide in the trailer gradually dissipated through the cracked vent over the bunk. By the time anyone opened that door, the air inside was breathable. There was nothing to see and nothing to smell. From the outside, at 9 in the morning, it was a perfectly ordinary trailer with the curtains closed. It was Ruben who noticed, a little after 11, that nobody had come out. Nell Corley was alive. She was unconscious, and she had spent the night on the bunk beside an open vent at the far end of the trailer from the generator, and that geography is the entire reason. She was flown to a hospital and put on high-flow oxygen and then into a hyperbaric chamber, which forces oxygen into the blood under pressure and drives the carbon monoxide off the hemoglobin far faster than breathing alone can. Adam, Lissa, and Wes Corley did not survive. Nell's recovery has been long, and it is not complete. And this is the part of carbon monoxide poisoning that people almost never hear about. Survivors frequently develop what is called delayed neurological syndrome, where a person appears to recover, goes home, seems basically fine, and then over the following weeks develops memory problems, difficulty concentrating, personality changes, movement problems, and depression. It is not rare. It happens to a significant fraction of serious survivors. She has struggled with her memory and with school ever since, and she was 17 before anyone told her that the thing making her feel stupid had a name. In the storage compartment on the outside of that trailer, in a cardboard box with the rest of the accessories that came with it when they bought it used, was a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector, still sealed in its packaging, unopened. It had been in there since April. There is nothing rare about this. Carbon monoxide kills hundreds of people a year in this country and sends thousands to emergency rooms, and it does it in campers and tents and cabins and garages and houses during power outages, and the details vary, but the shape almost never does. Somebody was cold, or the power was out, and they brought something that burns inside a space that has a roof, and they took a partial precaution that felt sufficient, and they went to sleep. Nobody in any of those stories was trying to get away with something. They were solving a problem they could feel, using the tools they had. And it is the only hazard we have covered on this channel where the solution is this simple and this cheap. You cannot buy a device that tells you the crust is thin at Norris. You cannot buy a device that tells you a moose is about to charge. But a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector costs less than a tank of gas, weighs nothing, runs for years, and is the only sense organ a human being has for this particular way of dying. The practical version, as short as it can be made, nothing that burns fuel goes inside a space with a roof, ever. Not a generator, not a propane heater, not rated for indoor use, not a camp stove, not a grill, and especially not charcoal, which produces enormous amounts of carbon monoxide while merely glowing, and which kills people every year precisely because dying coals do not look dangerous. A generator outside needs to be far from the trailer, tens of feet, with the exhaust pointed away, because exhaust drifts and gets pulled back in through vents and windows. Cracking a window is not ventilation. And if more than one person in a small space has a headache or nausea at the same time, the answer is to get everyone outside into fresh air immediately and never to lie down and see if it passes. Day and Priya Bhatt have been very clear that they do not consider themselves lucky in any way that reflects credit on them. They spent that night colder than they had ever been, wearing their coats and their sleeping bags, resenting the entire trip. They had no generator, no heater, no fuel of any kind. Being under-equipped was the only reason they were not part of this story. Ruben Sotelo still hosts that loop. He still carries the detectors in his glove box, and he still hands them out, and he has changed how he offers them. He does not ask anymore. He opens the packaging himself, pulls the tab, and hands it over already running, because he learned that a sealed box gets put in a drawer. When people ask him why he takes it so personally, he tells them the thing that separates this hazard from every other one out there. Everything else out here gives you a chance, he says. It makes a noise, or it hurts, or it wakes you up. This one lets you sleep straight through it. That is why a $20 box is the most important thing you will ever pack.